The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. It is snowing again outside in Virginia. Well, in my neck of the woods in Virginia. This is crazy. It was just 60 degrees yesterday, basically, or maybe the day before that. And now it's snowing. And then get this, by Wednesday, we'll be back to 60 degrees. And by Friday, we'll be damn near 70, or we'll be 70. And by Sunday, we'll be almost 80 degrees. Wow. And I mean, it's snowing too. Like, it's not just, and then it's supposed to rain and wash the snow away. And then it's supposed to be super warm. It's crazy. Global warming is real, folks. But I digress. How are you guys doing today? Commanders continue to have a busy offseason. We've talked about all the moves that they've done to the staff. I don't know if they're done yet there. We've talked about them cleaning up their books as the new league year gets closer and closer. This time next week, your boy will be live basically the entire day, right? Like we did last year, free agency, live. We're going to be talking about all of the moves that are being made, including with this Commanders team. I expect us to be busy and aggressive early and often on that first day of tampering on March 9th, which is next Monday. We will be here for all of it. I got to figure out the logistics of the timing of the tampering period. Does it begin at 12 noon? Does it begin at 4 p.m. East time? We got to figure out all of those specifics and particulars. Once we get all of that, we're going to be live and we're going to be talking about all the moves that are being made, and you will get those moves to you in real time as they happen. So next week's going to be a pretty busy week, to say the least. Monday's tampering, Tuesday's tampering, Wednesday is the official start of the new league year. That's when deals can become official, which is why you got to get your books in order right now. So you know, at the podium at the combine, Adam Peters talked about Marshon Lattimore, and you know, there's still some conversations. Remember, I said, bro, who you think you're talking to right now? Like, come on now. We follow this thing way too close for you to tell us there's still some conversations to be had. Marshon Lattimore was cut the second he tore his ACL. There was a chance. He wasn't actually playing all that bad. There was a chance. It was slight, but there was a chance he could have been back in 2026. The minute he tore his ACL, he was cooked here in Washington. The exclamation point was him getting into a little bit of trouble off the field. There was no way he was going to be back here for the Commanders, knowing how much they could save with the cap, with Marshon Lattimore being moved on from. So they made that official today. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at that. So around the NFL, tweeted this out earlier. Commanders informed cornerback Marshon Lattimore that they are releasing him per rap sheet. And then Tom Pelissero, who also is an NFL insider that works for the NFL Network, says Marshon Lattimore was due $18.5 million in 2026, including a $2 million bonus next week. Instead, he'll hit the market. So again, deadlines spur action. I tell you that all the time. They didn't have to move with any kind of urgency because they didn't have that deadline in front of them. The deadline is next week. That new league year kicks in a lot of bonuses for guys, i.e. Nick Allegretti. His money would have become official, which we'll talk about here in a second. Marshon Lattimore's $2 million bonus would have kicked in next week on Wednesday. So now you're seeing these timelines start to rapidly be escalated. And so now you're going to start to see action on the part of a lot of these teams. You just saw David Montgomery get traded. I suspect that you're going to see Max Crosby get traded this week. If A.J. Brown's going to be traded, I assume it's going to happen probably this week. You're going to see a lot of these things take place. Tua Tagovailoa is going to be released this week if he's getting cut. Same with Kyler Murray. If something's going to happen with Geno Smith, that's going to happen this week. You're going to see a lot of movement because now that deadline of the new league year and these bonuses being kicked in for guys still being on the roster are imminent. And no one wants to give money to a guy that's not going to be a part of their program in the upcoming 2026 season. So you're going to start to see a lot of movement, a lot of dominoes starting to be positioned, some being knocked down. And obviously for us, this was one of the big dominoes. $18.5 million worth of cap space is pretty significant. We knew it was coming. This was to be expected. The $2 million bonus that he was going to get was just an extra cherry on top. That's just extra money that they didn't want to have to shell out. So Marshon Lattimore officially no longer a part of the Commanders. And when you reflect on the trade itself, it didn't work. You know, I think we realized that pretty early on that this trade wasn't going to benefit the Commanders. It's a shame because when they traded for him, he was banged up. They knew he was banged up. They were hoping he could get healthy and help be one of the missing pieces of that stretch run, that magical stretch run in 2024. It didn't work out that year, but then you said, okay, he'll be healthy. He'll get a full offseason, or as they like to call it, a full runway to be ready to help this team in 2025. And there was still 2 years left on his deal with really no real money attached to it. So you felt good about it, at least guaranteed money. You could get out of this thing with no penalty, which is what they're doing right now. So you felt really good about Marshon Lattimore the next 2 seasons if he could just be competent. Last year, he struggled the early portion of the season. It was up and down, up and down. 1 week he was good, week 1. The next week he was really porous. It was every other week, right? Remember, week 1 he was good, week 2 he wasn't. Week 3 he was good against the Raiders, week 4 he wasn't against the Falcons. Week 5 he was good against the Chargers, forced that big fumble, if you recall. Recovered the fumble that was forced, I think, by Quan Martin in that Chargers game that turned everything around. We thought that was a season-defining fumble recovery and fumble forced, and we thought our season was going to kick into high gear after that. And then he struggled the next week against the Bears, and that was just his thing. He just couldn't play consistent football. Then it felt like he turned the corner right at that Chiefs game, had the interception, played really well, and it just never really materialized. And then he finally got hurt, tore his ACL, and was out for the rest of the season. So really sucks that Marshon Lattimore and that trade didn't work out for the Commanders. But this felt like a long time coming that he was going to be released here. And so this is just confirmation of something that we already knew. And as we continue on with more Commanders news, the Commanders and Nick Allegretti, this from John Keim and initially reported by Tom Pelissero, the Commanders and Nick Allegretti have agreed to a new 2-year contract. He was scheduled to count 7.1 against the cap. It was also going to be his final season. So let's stop right there before we finish the rest of this tweet. That $7.1 million was going to count against the cap. You know they've just lowered that number, right? That's why you tear that contract up, give him a new 2-year deal. And so that's going to bring that number down, free up even more cap space. Expect the Commanders to be aggressive. I'm going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that after we're done talking about Nick Allegretti in particular, because I think some of you are still kind of treading softly and lightly here. Like, well, I don't know. We're going to see. It ain't no, I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to be aggressive in free agency. Again, may not be the players that you want, but they will be aggressive in free agency. To what extent? That's the thing we don't know. But one thing's for sure, they are going to be aggressive in free agency. It says the new deal gives him another year under his contract. Allegretti can back up at guard, and this is the big part that I know some of you don't want to hear, and could compete at center to start. So let's talk about Nick Allegretti and what all of this could potentially mean, because understand that they saw Nick Allegretti. Like, let me ask you a question. At the end of the season, when Tyler Biadasz was out, who started at center? If you said Nick Allegretti, you'd be correct. And they had some success down the stretch of the season, running the football, doing some things that they were able to kind of see. And this is the thing in the NFL sometimes, when you give a guy an opportunity to play, and not necessarily Nick Allegretti came in and he was all world, but if they see that they can function without you and that you weren't actually playing all that well to begin with, and now we can function without you, well, why the hell are we paying you all of this money? We can just move on. And worst case scenario, this guy can give us the same play that you were giving us at a fraction of the cost. So they basically got to see what life without Tyler Biadasz looked like. And they were like, we can manage that. That can work. Right? Now, again, we would all like to see them upgrade the center position. I don't think any of us are comfortable with Nick Allegretti as the starter. I am extremely comfortable with Nick Allegretti as my primary backup at center. Extremely comfortable. If he has to come in the game, I know that shit's not going to fall apart at the seams if he has to play. Like if Michael Dieter has to come in, that's a problem. Hey, thank you for making me right, Jaden. If he had to come in, all bets are off, right? Allegretti has to come in. I feel damn good that he's going to be able to be a nice Band-Aid solution until the starter is able to come back into the fold. Same thing with Andrew Wiley, which is why I think these are two brilliant moves. And I talked about this offseason, not as much Allegretti because he was already under contract when we were talking about free agents that the Commanders had that I thought they should bring back. But I said Andrew Wiley, I would love to have him brought back. If they didn't bring him back, I wasn't going to trip about it. But I would love to see them bring him back because he offers value, and we know he is capable of stepping in at both guard positions and right tackle in particular. So we feel comfortable about him just like we feel comfortable about Allegretti stepping in at all three guard positions. Is he a world beater at any of those positions? No. But is he a competent backup at both guard positions and potentially at center as a starter? Yes. But keep in mind, they've got money. There are options. The next big offensive line domino is Chris Paul. Somebody sent me a tweet. Let me see if I can track it down. I'm going to read it to you guys the other day. And I told you, Rico brought this up. This is from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. He said, so he wrote an article. He said, fun exercise from the combine, identifying sleepers. And then sleepers for him, players who have a sneaky good market heading into free agency. And then he cites an example of what he is referring to. Commanders offensive guard Chris Paul is a prime example. And he has a picture of Chris Paul as his thumbnail on that post on X. And so I'm going to tell you right now, somebody's always eyeballing your stuff. So in his article, this is what he wrote. Commanders offensive guard Chris Paul had 15 starts last season with a powerful style of play. Starting guards with pulse get paid. Just telling you right now, this is not a great free agent market for offensive linemen. He's a guy that is going to be on teams' radar. And if they are interested in bringing him back, they need to do it before he tests the market. I don't know what they envision paying him. I don't even know if they are. I don't know if they even feel like he's a great fit for what they're about to embark upon with this new scheme that they're going to run, right? He may not be a great fit for them, but I'd rather have him than not have him. And I don't think if you take care of him before he becomes a free agent, I don't think it's going to cost you a ton. You let him hit free agency and other teams get to bid. Now that price goes through the roof. And I don't think they're going to be in a position where they want to match it. They can, but again, they've invested a ton on this offensive line in terms of draft capital and money. We've talked about this already. Okay. And they're not done yet because Laramie Tunsil still has to get his deal. That is the next thing that we're going to see happen in a major way along the offensive line. But they spent money on him. They spent money on him. They spent money on Nick on Sam Cosmi, right? They spent a draft pick. They spent draft capital to acquire Laramie Tunsil. They spent a first-round pick on Josh Connolly Jr. And now they have to do something at center. And again, it could be in-house. It could be Brandon Coleman. It could be Nick Allegretti, or it could be an outside source. It could be the free agency pool, and they go and get themselves a serviceable guy like James Daniels, for instance, who was released by the Miami Dolphins, and they bring him in here to be the starting center, right? Not going to cost you a ton, but it's going to cost you. Or they could go into the draft, and Daniel Jeremiah said there's at least 4 guys at the center position that you can get in those mid rounds 3, 4, and 5, that are plug-and-play starting centers in this league. Maybe that's one of the guys that they're interested in. It'll be very intriguing to see how they fill this void. Just remember, Nick Allegretti finished the season as the starting center. They've always viewed him as a better center than a guard. They've always viewed him in that light. So have I, right? But we'll see what they decide to do. But Chris Paul is on teams' radars. So if they're interested in bringing him back, and I'll be honest, DQ's answer when asked about Chris Paul was somewhat lukewarm. It was somewhat lukewarm. Doesn't mean he's not going to be back here, but we'll see. I think they're looking for more athletes up front because of the blocking scheme that they're going to try to utilize this year. I think they're looking for more athleticism. Chris Paul, not the greatest athlete, very firm and strong at the point of attack, but can he move? Which is going to be a big part of what they're going to ask their offensive linemen to do in this new scheme. That's the $1 million question. And that may ultimately drive their decision-making as to whether or not they bring back Chris Paul. We'll see. But look, this team has been extremely busy this offseason. And believe you me when I tell you that is going to continue on March the 9th. Right out of the gates, the Commanders are going to be active. Now, again, let's talk about it because they've freed up this cap space with Marshon Lattimore, giving them even more cap flexibility. They just redid Nick Allegretti's deal, which is going to give them even more cap relief, right? That was $7 million against the cap. I guarantee you they've lowered that number to $3 or $4 million now, right? So they just freed up even more cap space. There's probably another move or two that could be made to free up more cap space if they want to. It's not necessary, but if they wanted to, they could. And I think they're going to go out here and they're going to be very active in this free agency period right out of the gates. That March 9th tampering period, I expect the Commanders to be bing, bang, booming right out of the gate. They've agreed to terms with this guy. They've agreed to terms with this guy. They've agreed to terms with this guy. Now, again, may not be players that you love, but there will be an edge rusher that they will sign. I think they're going to sign a cornerback. I think they're going to sign a running back, potentially. Right out of the gates, I think they're going to be very aggressive in targeting specific position groups that they need to fill out this roster. I think you're going to see Adam Peters be a little bit more aggressive than what you've seen from him in these first 2 years in free agency, understanding that there is a bit of sense of urgency. You have 2 new coordinators. They've given you a clear, foundation from which you can work from. And they've given you a clear path of where you need to travel to get the players that they need. I think you're going to see the Commanders be aggressive. And I don't think they're going to be making a beeline for some C-list free agent right out of the gates, like some of you probably think. I think they're going to go after one A-lister and about 3 or 4 B-listers right out of the gates. Right out of the gates. I think you're going to see the Commanders be hyper aggressive. That first tampering day of the 9th of March, I expect the Commanders to have already agreed to terms with at least 3 free agents, at least 3. That next day, another 2 or 3 more guys, right? And then that's when things might simmer down a bit. They may try to let the market kind of settle, and then they go back in for guys like Eric Wilson, the linebacker from Minnesota, right? If he hasn't already agreed to terms somewhere, you go back in and grab a guy like that to bring him in here to help kind of implement this defense. He was in it last year. He knows the ins and outs of it, was able to be a playmaker. You bring in a guy like that, right? You'll see some more lower level free agents. I've talked about Roy Lopez, defensive tackle. Bring him in on a one-year deal. You don't have to make a beeline to Roy Lopez right out of the gates. You can do that down the road. I wouldn't be shocked if the first thing they do is they go get a receiver. Wouldn't be shocked if the first thing they do is go get a tight end or a wide receiver or a cornerback. But I expect that to be the direction right out of the gates. I expect them to be aggressive. If they're not, I'm going to be shocked. And what aggressive is for me and you and them, maybe three different things. Activity is aggressive for me. Activity with a certain level of free agent that you're bringing in. If those first 2 days during the tampering period are full of A and B list free agents, that's aggressive activity for me. You can save the C listers for that next wave. You don't have to be aggressive in targeting those guys. They're going to work in some of those guys as well. Some of those C list, D list free agents, because we got to fill out the roster. We have the third least amount of roster spots accounted for heading into the new league year. We've got to actually, it's like we've gone back to 2024 all over again, which is why, remember, we were aggressive in 2024. I expect that level of aggression maybe even turned up a notch because we're right back to where we were 2 years ago when we didn't have anybody on the roster. We're back there again. But this time, instead of them building the roster in an image that it could crumble in a year or two because it was a bunch of aging 1 year veteran deals that they were kind of filling up the roster with just so we could field the team, right? You got a young quarterback that you just drafted. You're not expected to do much. Just fill the roster out. Let's try to be competitive. Let's see what the young guys got. What do we need after that? Then we can start to slowly build. But instead, they went out, they won 12 games, they went to the NFC Championship game. It changed their whole thought process. And so they didn't have the same approach that they would have had. Wise man, and I keep saying this because I love this quote. Wise man once said, success is a distraction from the process. We were distracted last year. They are distracted no more. Or as a wise man once told us, we were lost. We are lost no more, right? We may have lost the season last year, but we are lost no more. We're no longer lost. They know exactly what they have to do this offseason. I expect them to attack this offseason and this free agency period with vigor, understanding the assignment, knowing that they are looking to build this roster the right way this time around. Jacob Martin, I would like to see them, if they have plans on getting him done, get him done before free agency. I don't think anybody's fighting you over Jacob Martin, but you can never be sure. He just set a career high in sacks last year. Somebody might look at his 5.5 sacks that he got last season and say, we could use some of that. Doesn't cost you a bunch. Get him done. All right, get that done. If you have guys that you want back, which we've seen with Andrew Wiley, Nick Allegretti, who was not a free agent, but again, if you got guys that you want back, now's the time. You've got a week basically to get Chris Paul signed up if you want him back, to get guys like Jacob Martin signed up if you want him back. If you want guys back that are free agents, take care of them now. Marcus Mariota, take care of him now if you can. If not, see what happens in free agency. I'm just not as comfortable allowing certain guys to hit free agency if you don't have to. Because you just don't know the level of desperation that exists out there around the league. You just don't know. So, we'll see what happens. But Allegretti back, I love the move. Again, you can never have enough depth on the offensive line. As we've seen each of the last 2 seasons, we've needed to tap into that depth. again, center is such an enigma right now for us because you move on from Biotish, which is cool. I don't think any of us are tripping about it. A little bit surprised and caught off guard by it, but none of us are tripping about it. It's not like he was an all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber center. And he also dealt with injuries each of his 2 seasons here. So he played through some injuries. He made 31 starts, so it's not like he was injured all the time and was never available, but he was often compromised from an injury standpoint, and the play kind of, represented that. But we're also interested in, all right, so who's his replacement? What are you going to do there? They've got a plan. Does this plan include free agency, in-house option, the draft? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But I like the fact that no matter what happens, Allegretti will be here because he provides value as a veteran option on this offensive line. We hope as depth, but even if he has to start, you can get by with Nick Allegretti, but we're not looking to just get by on offense. I think we can all come to an agreement on we're not looking to just get by. We're looking to thrive on offense, not survive. Last year, we were just trying to survive on offense. This year, we're looking to thrive. So if that's the case, you got to find a way to put the 5 best offensive linemen that not only fit what you're trying to do schematically, but also can be guys that anchor this offensive line in front of Jaden, open up holes in the run game. And then, we'll see what they decide to do at running back. That's another big offseason piece, wide receiver, tight end, all of that good stuff. I think you're going to see them be aggressive on the offensive side of the football in free agency. I think you're going to see them be aggressive on the defensive side of the football in free agency. As I've told you, you can build yourself a secondary if you wanted to in free agency. It's a really good free agency crop, just like tight end and running back are this year as well. Receiver, not as much, which is why I don't know if they're going to be super aggressive in the wide receiver market, but I do expect them to add something there. If you want to bring back Treylon Burks, do it before the start of free agency, right? Everybody watched that one-hand grab against Denver. It was on national television. Someone may give him an opportunity. Don't allow that to be the case. There are teams that are starving for wide receivers, like New Orleans, for instance. Don't give them an opportunity to get a former first-round pick. Give him a little bit of cash. We saw Jacksonville. Who thought De'Ami Brown was getting $10 million last year? It could happen. Don't allow your stuff to hit the free agent market. If you want him back, get it done before the start of the new league year. So we'll see what happens with all of these different guys. And I expect them to be aggressive at tight end. I expect them to be aggressive at running back. I expect them to be aggressive at cornerback. I don't know about safety. That's one of those positions where I would love to see them be aggressive at safety, but I can't be assured of that because we don't know what Durante Jones thinks of, Jartavius Martin and Will Harris and Tyler Owens. He spoke about all of these guys in his press conference. He could have been bullshitting us or he could have been dead ass. We don't know. And as much as we would like to move on from Jartavius, they spent the second round, not this group, but he's a second round pick. So in there somewhere lies talent. And it would be a guy like Durante Jones that thinks I can get it out of him. So I don't know if we're going to see them be as aggressive at safety as I would like them to, because I feel like we need 2 new starting safeties. Just give me one. I'll compromise. Just give me one, right? Go get me Brian Cook from the Chiefs, right? Just give me one. But we'll see what they do, right? We'll see what they decide to do. This is going to be intriguing. This is going to be this week is going to be fun because I don't think we're just getting started with Commanders news. I think you're going to see Commanders news all week long. Because now they're done with the combine. They can because I told you everything happens in order, sequential order. Combine comes and that kind of kicks off the offseason. Now everything's in hyperdrive, right? So now you refocus yourself on free agency. Got to take care of your guys first, which is what you just saw them do with Nick Allegretti, with Marshon Lattimore. They're not done yet. They're going to continue to take care of their guys, move on from guys, whatever the case may be. So that's what this week is going to be filled with. They're going to continue to do their homework on these free agents. You're going to see what these teams elect to do with the franchise tag, who's going to be out there, who's going to be available, because that's going to help you formulate your game plan. Who do we attack? Who do we go after? What agents do we reach out to immediately as soon as this thing gets started? You prioritize which guys are the most important. That's what you're going to be seeing them do this week. Of course, that's going to be done behind scenes. We're not going to know about all of that, but that's where they are in the process, right? Then next week, you're going to see them be aggressive right out of the gates. Right out of the gates. I'm hoping that aggression leads them straight to a guy like Isaiah Likely. I'm praying that it leads them to someone like that in the opening moments of the tampering period, and then from there we just keep taking off, right? We'll see what ultimately happens, but I'm excited. I feel like this offseason has gone really well to this point, and they've been aggressive to this point with the staff, with the moves that they've made, even moving on from Tyler Biadasz. I got to applaud that, right? It's another move that I don't think any of us saw coming, didn't know if it was necessary or not, but it's another move of a team that isn't satisfied. Last year was a disaster. We're not going to sit on our hands and bury our head. The last regime, you know what the last regime would have done? They would have blamed it on injuries. Oh, we were injured last year. We're just going to run this shit back. We're going to stay healthy this time, add a few pieces, and watch what happens because we're close. That's what the last group and the group before that would have done. Just sat on their hands and said, oh, the injuries did it to us. This group said, bullshit. We was on some bullshit before the injuries hit us. We weren't playing the kind of football that we needed to play. We need to make changes, real changes, tangible changes. And that's what they've done. And you're going to see that carry itself all the way through this offseason. Adam Peters is going to restore, for some of you, not all of you, most of you are still all in on Adam Peters, as am I. Some of you, you're teetering a little bit, right? You're on the fence a little bit. Like, he got to show me something this offseason. It's a big offseason for him, Dan Quinn, and company. Some of y'all are already out on Dan Quinn, and that's cool. I get it. But Adam Peters is going to restore the faith this offseason. I really expect him to show why he's that guy. Let him cook. We restore the Adam Peters in the kitchen cooking up crack this offseason. Let him cook. We restore that this offseason. Adam Peters restores that type of faith this offseason. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, I digress. Club 100 TV. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Club 100 writes, don't be surprised if Dorrance is the next cut if they get 2 DNs in free agency. I wouldn't be shocked. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He's coming off of a major injury. It's no slight at Dorrance. When healthy, he was very productive, good member of this team, but business is business. And Dorrance isn't getting any younger. He's coming off of a major injury. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think there's much guaranteed money left on that deal, if I had to guess. So they could probably get out of there without eating a ton of that, money. And it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me in the least. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. But again, like you said, what's going to be interesting is he due any money at the start of the new league year on March 11th? Because you can't cut him without getting those guys first. In your scenario, you got 2 edge rushers in free agency first. So you want to see what you do first before you can move on, right? Like old adage was, don't quit your job before you get a new one, right? We got to see if we can replace him before, and I expect them to be aggressive. Adam Peters even said out of his mouth, we got to get faster, more explosive off the edge. Yeah, no shit, right? Like, we got nothing off the edge right now. I expect them to be aggressive in free agency, get at least 1 guy, and then look into the draft to get another guy, right? They got to overhaul the defensive end position. Wouldn't be shocked if they brought back, Dietrich Wise and Jacob Martin, but you still got to do stuff. Like, those guys aren't needle movers. You still got to do stuff. So we got nothing. We got nothing at edge rusher right now. Renell Winchester, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Renell writes, veteran wide receiver Deebo Samuel is not expected to return to Commanders per Matthew Berry. I don't think that's a surprise. I already told you he was gone. That's not a surprise to me. That's the equivalent of someone telling me that Marshon Lattimore was going to be cut. I expect that. Like Deebo, I always felt like this, and we had these conversations last year, and we didn't know what was going to happen, but I told y'all last year when we traded for him, this is a 1-year hired gun type of situation. He was a hired mercenary. His job was to come in and help us get over the top in 2025. Terry needed a running mate. He was supposed to offer a number two, a Robin to Terry's Batman in 2025. And unfortunately, we never got to see that come to fruition because of all of the injuries. But he himself was solid. But I would have entertained the thought of bringing Deebo back if he continued to play the way that he did early in the season. You know, I think the first 5 weeks of the season, minus week 2 against the minus week 3, against the Raiders, where he was really a non-factor and almost gave the ball away early in that game, had a ball go off his hands and almost picked off, which was a theme of the season for him. Minus week 3, he was the MVP of the first 5 weeks of the season, right? So if you were to tell me he was going to play like that the rest of the year, yeah, we got to bring Deebo back. But after week 5 and the Chargers game, when he caught the pass, when him and Jaden were practicing their dance routine in the huddle right before they scored, after that game, Deebo was never the same. You know, the heel injury became a real problem the following week against Chicago. He was a non-factor. Then he missed the following week's game against Dallas. Then he came back, and then he started turning the ball over, right? The Chiefs game, he turned the ball over. The Vikings game, he had to drop. You know, he had another, mistake that hurt us. He consistently was hurting us in pivotal spots. And so I'm good on Deebo. And again, the age, you already got one, 30-plus-year-old wide receiver under contract for multiple years. You don't need another one. So that's not a surprise to me. But I know for some people that might be something that you were holding out hope they may do. Deebo's gone. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, video channel writes, Lou, video channel. Pick one, Linderbaum or Nick for a 2-year with a rookie in tow as the future replacement. So do you go out and spend money on Tyler Linderbaum, which I don't think the Ravens are going to let him leave. But do you spend money on Tyler Linderbaum, or do you go get Nick? Do you re-sign Nick with this 2-year deal and draft a young guy to, like, you basically use Nick as a bridge for this young safety, that young center that you draft, and have him be ready mid of the season, sort of on some Brandon Coleman type stuff, where Allegretti starts out as your starter, and then eventually, if you draft somebody, I guess it just depends on how high you draft. You're not spending your first-round pick on a center. You could theoretically spend your third-round pick on a center, but more likely than not, you're not spending your third-round pick on the center either. The 5th round would be where you probably would start to look to spend, a pick on a center, and he might not be ready, right? That might be a guy you got to develop. And so Allegretti starts this year, that guy learns, and then next year he's ready to take over for Allegretti, and Allegretti could either be cut next year or he could be, a backup next year, go back into the backup role that he had last year. I think if you're asking me which I would rather do, of course, I would rather sign Tyler Linderbaum, but I don't think he's going to be available. And 2, I don't think they're looking to invest that kind of money into the center position. I could be wrong, but what I think they're going to do is, if you're asking me to choose between the 2 choices, I think they're going to take the Nick option, where you sign him to the 2-year deal and then you draft his replacement and have him be that bridge, right? That's an option. Or Nick and then another free agent option as well, right? So these are all options that exist. So we'll see what they decide to do. If it were me, give me Tyler Linderbaum, right? Obviously, it ain't my money, right? I want us to get as much talent here on the offensive line as we can, and much talent as we can in general. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Reedy Davis, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, main goal should be to sign everyone's we want as much depth on the team, then attack free agency. So the next step in the process is bringing back or releasing all the guys that are here. You shed yourself of dead weight, right? Which they've started to do with the Marshon Lattimore situation. They shaved off some of the Nick Allegretti salary for this year, so that's cleaning up some more of the books. But that's a guy that they wanted back here, not just this year, but potentially next year as well. Same thing with Andrew Wiley, right? So they've taken care of those two guys. You continue to take care of guys in-house. Jacob Martin, Marcus Mariota, Chris Rodriguez. Again, you don't have to necessarily do a Chris Rodriguez because he's a restricted free agent. So you can match any deal that he gets on the open market. So that might be something you push to the back burner because you got that ace in your back pocket with him. You get the right of first refusal on him. But guys that are going to be unrestricted free agents that you expose to the rest of the league, if you let them get to March 11th, you probably need to take care of those guys before March 11th, right? So that's what you should be looking to do. Then obviously set your board for free agency as far as attacking other teams' free agents that are going to be allowed to hit the market. Reedy Davis, thank you for being a member for 32 months. Who writes, hope 7 is love. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he's going to get to 7, man. As I sit and I think more and more about how the NFL is changing and what teams are trying to do, I just look at the Titans. I think that's the landing destination for Jeremiah Love is the Tennessee Titans. They've got enough money to go out and address wide receiver and tight end in free agency. And while they could go in a different direction, I think the trade for, and this is what makes me think it's the Titans, the trade for Jermaine Johnson, an edge rusher, takes away the need for them to be aggressive in drafting an edge rusher. I think that was the specifics behind doing that. They acquired an edge, so now they can go and draft best player available instead of drafting a need that kind of intersects with best player available. Now they can just flat out remove need out of the equation and just best player available. And I think it's going to be Jeremiah Love for them. So, yeah, I think he's going to be off the board. If he gets past them, I think he'll end up here in Washington, or at least he'll have a chance to. I can't say what they're going to do. Free agency is going to tell the story, right? I keep saying that. Free agency is going to be huge because that's going to tell the story as to whether or not, they're going to be aggressive in going after a running back or not. Because if they go out and they sign a running back in free agency and a specific type, right? Like if they go out and they get Tyler Algier, Jeremiah Love is still an option, right? Even though you could just pair Tyler Algier, because if what DQ said, Matthew Berry said that he got the sense talking to people close to the situation, the Commanders want a quote unquote thumper. That's Tyler Algier, right? That's a thumper. Like Jeremiah Love is not a thumper. Okay. But if they go out and they get a Tyler Algier, you could still pair him with Jeremiah Love and have Bill be, a guy that can spell Jeremiah Love and still get some touches here and there. But like Jeremiah Love's not out of the equation. He's not off the table. If you go out and you get a Rachaad White, I think Jeremiah Love's now off the table. Like it just feels like that's a different type of back. I don't think you're not bringing in Love with Rachaad White, Bill, and I mean you could theoretically speaking still do that, right? But that just feels a little wonky. It feels like too repetitive. Sonny Rawson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Sonny Rawson writes, watching other teams playing, seeing how quick they force the quarterback to make a decision. It won't matter if we bring in Prime Revis if we can't rush the quarterback. That's why I think you're going to see them be aggressive in free agency. You still got to have guys that can cover, because even if you can get to the quarterback, if your coverage sucks on the back end, it doesn't matter. But with this scheme, I've already told you, if there's a corner that you can cut, it's cornerback. Like literally, you can get away with not having upper echelon, top tier corners. They did it in Minnesota for years, right? An aging Stephon Gilmore, an undersized Byron Murphy. Like they went out and got the corner from the Eagles last year that played really well. But again, he's not a world beater. Like, you can get away at the cornerback position in this scheme if you can get to the quarterback. And they still need guys, even though you can create chaos up front with all this movement and all of the confusion that you can cause an offensive line by not knowing who's coming, who's rushing from where. You still need guys that can win one-on-one matchups. And we do not have that. They still need to find a guy that can beat somebody one-on-one, mano-a-mano. So I do expect them to go out, pursue a guy like Boye Mafe and still be aggressive in going after someone else. That might be via the draft. But I expect us to come away with at least 2 brand new edge rushers, guys that were not on this roster last year. I expect us to come away with at least 2 new cornerbacks, guys that were not on this roster a year ago. I expect us to come away with at least 1, possibly 2 new running backs that were not on this roster a year ago. I expect us to come away with at least 1 new receiver, possibly 2 that were not on this roster a year ago. So you're going to see a total overhaul of this roster because they're going to add guys that were not here a season ago. And linebacker, I expect them to add at least 1, possibly 2 guys that were not here a year ago. The only position that I think they need to add to, tight end, they're going to add at least 1, right? Don't think they're going to add 2, just 1. The only position that I don't know what they're going to do is safety. I want them to add 2. I'm not sure they're going to add even 1, right? That's the one that I'm like a little nervous about and not quite sure like what they're thinking is. But in my mind, in my heart of hearts, I've got to believe they understand that they benched Quan Martin for a reason last year, or Jartavius Martin last year. And Will Harris, while he's solid, is, at best a rotational safety. He can play. You can put him on the field, but he shouldn't be a guy you're relying on. I really hope they understand that they got to add at least 1 safety. I'll compromise. Add 1. I would prefer 2, but I'll compromise. Just give me 1. Go get a Kobe, right? Go get a Kobe Bryant. The Seahawks would be stupid to let him walk, but you can't re-sign everybody. If he hits the free agent market, you go get Kobe Bryant. Be aggressive. We'll see what they do. They're gonna definitely upgrade edge rusher for sure. So that's not something I worry about. How effective are those guys going to be? We'll see. But they're going to absolutely upgrade edge rusher here in Washington. They have no choice. Have no choice. That's the last super chat. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. I might come back a little bit later on this evening and just talk about everything. Did you guys see Jerry Jones said that the Cowboys are going to be aggressive? And now you're seeing guys like CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott restructure their deals. The Cowboys are going to go out. They're also going to throw their hat in the Max Crosby ring. I hope he doesn't end up. And I know the Raiders, if they trade him, they want to trade him to an NFC team. I hope he doesn't end up in this division. God forbid the Eagles get their hands on this guy. But they're asking for a lot. They're asking for 2 first-round picks and a player. So that might scare away some teams here in our division. But the Cowboys with some money this offseason could be dangerous. We'll talk about some of those things and all of the things that are going on around the NFL. I know you saw David Montgomery ended up getting traded to the Houston Texans. That's a big move for the Houston Texans. He's going to upgrade their running back position significantly. So, so much to get to, so much going on in the NFL right now. And I may come back and talk about some of those things a little bit later on. In any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless. Good night. This is going to be an aggressive offseason. Buckle up. Should be one hell of a ride.